One wonders if it is possible to be surpassingly unsurprising. The missionaries in medicine, young UW dialectical types, have cautioned that I am a paranoid schizophrenic. I'd like to show you some items that strongly convey the antithesis, which is that they are authoritarian hate criminals covering for an outrage. Of course, we know now that Trumpy Tune was in linkage with Putin and friends of Putin like Oliver Stone. So we're in the new good old days where a person's freedom of speech is violently curtailed under mental health diagnostics. What we see here is a C and a Star of David. The root claim that I'm a paranoid schizophrenic is an attempt to out harmless, contradict, and otherwise lie to the effect that Will Zellberm on Mount Desert Island um, did not confirm, saying before he started to me in art school, what would you think of a scheme to transform the human race by injecting the blood? And that Queer Seattle, working with him, did not in fact use the work with these people to make any claim to the effect that this was true, punishable with an HIV injection threat that these UW's med malpractitioners have underwritten by poisoning me in the mouth, the heart, chemical castration, making me deaf, and using a neurological implant on me, while saying as their alibi that Reagan didn't know and the Beatles were the victims. But the Beatles weren't the victims. The Beatles worked with Aleister Crowley and the British Union of Fascists on the assassination of JFK. So they would be the biggest thing in America, as they said on Petticoat Junction. The Beatles slaughtering violence is a hallmark of the British Union of Fascism. And the Beatles slaughtering violence underwrote what was done to me on Mount Desert Island. None of their lives make any difference. When we were young, we used to think, oh, these people were protesting. They were the good guys. They were like Woodstock. That's not true. These people were working with Colin Powell and the right wing of the NAM veterans who launched an insurrection on January 6, 2021, after the COVID monstrosity was put into play. You could see as a child, a neurological experimenter who used an implant in me for the Jewish community had given me a lecture on Yad Vashem because when King Crimson first came out with Schizoid Man, with Paranoia's Poison Door, or the dialectic established at the onset, as their partner Carl said, I wrote about the promised land. You see, they had taken me on a slideshow tour of Yad Vashem with their father Bernard, who turned out to be a psychiatrist for Attica State Prison. What would a 9-year-old child with a neurological implant have in the lace to defend himself with as a nonviolent, unarmed citizen of the city of Pittsburgh against a monster like the psychiatrist from Attica State Prison? Yet nobody came to my defense. In fact, the NAACP were licking chops, making pornographic mockery of me with the help of the Japanese sadist in Unit 731, who's a film about him which has a trailer of gays hauling their own crucifixes. So you wonder what they could have possibly meant by victory and revenge planning. The Neva Corporation used the C and the Star of David and took me to King's Estate, like King's Heavenly Estate, and gassed me while sending me letters from Israel that Trumpy-Tune is covering for by claiming that I'm the bad guy for trying to get help to my people, the poor of the United States of America. Here's his buddy Flip with a picture of the author of the letters, Gail Burstyn, on the cover of one of his records. What gives? What gives is that they were using a child for vivisection and laughing about it. And then they were getting the girls to say, he's ick, ick. He's ick, ick. And it all traces back to a revenge planning from Hollywood against the Axis attempts to get help for the victims of Hitler, whom some of the people in Hollywood actually admired, like John Wayne, whose weird film, The Green Berets, opens with the Marines singing in German. And there's Oswald with the Duke, with John Wayne. Oswald and John Wayne together um, worked out the Cheshire Cat phenomenon of this script letter about the murder of Martin Luther King, which was definitely not about the murder of John Lennon, which never happened. John Yoko O was all in the planning from the days of Oswald's Diary Life magazine. What they was up to was getting Midori Goto for Sidney Poitier as a championship football match for the captainship of the Ark. And to aid and abet them, the NAACP set me up in Pittsburgh with a no-no from the anthropology department, characterized by John Schulman's sale of museum books for $6 million in a major hustle by the city of Pittsburgh to sponsor their own underworld. And he was busted, but it wasn't because of me. They ignored me when I reported his um, graft at the post office in favor of calling me a villain who was starting rumors. What was I starting rumors about? And they said I was a paranoid schizophrenic. I wasn't starting rumors. I was testifying that these people were ripping off legitimate citizens for millions of dollars while making secret spy cam porno of grade school children, which is what was going on. And they advertised that they were doing it and got away with it. They put it right on the cover of one of the newspapers and got away with it. You could say they did. They got away with the whole thing. They got away with the whole thing in cold blood and broad daylight. Why? Because I dared to say that the man who was in the squad that was keeping me from going to school, saying I was just a troublemaker, was working with this man who stabbed Shannon Harps to death. Over what? Over a penny, a C and a Star of David. And I dared to say that a namesake of this one called me the day they claimed John Lennon was shot and that she's a good friend of the Crow Cag reduced to Corona. So what gives is that they were following the voice of the San Jacinto, my father. And you see in one of their films, he says, "Ah, so Pittsburgh," after a flash of light. So what they were doing was they were following to they were organized by the CIA's Reconciliation Committee for the Axis that was on the U.S. San Jacinto with George Bush and my father to work through the web of the gangster situation in Hollywood and the wise owls who were stupid enough to fall for it on the streets of Seattle so that they could dominate the pimp squads of the Pussyball Legion and redistribute the wealth after several cunning acts. That's just at the root This lookalike of Lennon comes back in 1964 in a Japanese film about Martha with a gorilla like Yoko Ono in it. But one of the things we know is that these lookalikes of Richard, the Queen Elizabeth's um, uh, cousin, were in place. And this guy had his script planted on my house. And this guy over here came out and waved to me the night before this happened. What did they have me on the sets of both of these things for? And this guy says there's no such thing as objective reality, only what the jury believes. He was the master of Hollywood. He could have pulled any of this stuff. And this was the wizard who put out a film called How I Won the War. No such thing as objective reality, only what the jury believes. What's going on here is Pentagon Disney. They're staging a sort of Clint Eastwood style, believable Hollywood charade of being shot while stepping out for uh, the Axis revenge party that they mongered to, like in Dealey Plaza with these guys, and in Seattle where they have look-alike of Gail Burstyn, the woman on the flip cover in Seattle Center playing the violin while the geisha howling like in the Court of the Crimson King goes up under her dress with the pike. You see, they know they were. Even Jack Ruby was a pimp. You see, so they're playing, sort of. They're playing with Marina Oswald and her baby in the Dallas Police Department as sort of Roe versus Henry Wade. He was the sheriff in this again with Alfred Hitchcock's mother, motherly love about who done it, right? Roe versus Wade. Because he was sleeping with Monroe, they said. And there's the Pink Panther next to him. La Femme Nikita had something up her sleeve. So what do we find in Hitler Reagan's films? But rather us with the U.S. over the swastika. There he goes right there with Errol Flynn. You see? The dude who was meeting with Hitler. You can Google that. So, and they say I'm the bad guy. I'm the pussy ball for testifying. You know? What gives is they planned a snuff film of the United States of America. The first issue of The Humanist came out with Robert Anton Wilson, who's still at it up here in Tacoma with the COVID monstrosity. And they bisect him, see? They bisect him on the cover. And there's a dude in this magazine whose name is Auto Crash. Auto Crash. Oh, was that somebody from Hogan's Heroes? And they say I'm like Ezra Pound making broadcasts for the enemy. Ezra Pound made broadcasts for Hitler's Germany. I'm making broadcasts to protect the dignity of the United States. There seems to be some confusion as to what the difference between this is. And they say, oh, that's impossible. That couldn't possibly be true. Here's another lookalike of that Gail Burstyn from an Ayn Rand film whose specialty in science fiction was the disappearance of prime movers for Secret Service. And she has her hands clapped over her ears. And here it is. It would be like starting over. You see, they want to get revenge and start over. And they say in the Pitt News, here's how loyal um, the Pitt News is to the senior faculty who they have murdered. They say, you give Rock a bad name. I give Rock a bad name. Seems to me those English child molesters in King Crimson are the ones giving Rock a bad name. Don't you agree?